This is Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and we are talking about the free agency news, rumors, and moves that teams are making in the National Football League right now. And in the NFL, there's constant movement. There's constant rumors. There's constant news. There's trades starting to happen because we are hitting that prime part of the 2026 off season where everyone is starting to position themselves to be able to make a move the minute that the league year starts, or to make a trade, or to sign a free agent. And it feels like there are a lot of teams that are putting themselves in a position to have a lot of success. Now, the Seahawks don't seem to be making any real big moves, and I do have to preface this. As we started taping this video, some news did break for the Seattle Seahawks, so we'll make sure that we tell you about the two moves that they made at the end. Kind of makes this little lower third here a little bit ironic, but that's okay. It is what it is. I do want to make it clear, though. This is how John Schneider wants it. He doesn't want a lot of big news. He doesn't want a lot of big rumors. He doesn't want a lot of big stories kind of circling around the Seahawks. Think about it. When the Seahawks make a big move, or they make a big signing, or they make a big trade in the John Schneider era, there hasn't been a whole lot of smoke going out. There hasn't been a whole lot of rumors. Geno Smith, none of us thought he was really on the market to be traded, really, and then all of a sudden, he was gone. DK Metcalf, yeah, it was clear that they didn't really love each other, and there wanted to be a lot of, there needed to be a separation there, but that kind of came more so from DK Metcalf's camp, not necessarily from the Seahawks. So Schneider likes to be like a cobra. He likes to wait, lay low in the grass, and strike when the moment is correct, whether that's a big trade or big free agent signing or a big re-signing, in fact, like the two that he made earlier today. We're going to get into all of that, but that's why you turn on your notifications for Seahawks Today. The minute that there is breaking news for the Seattle Seahawks, we will make sure that we get out a video to you. Here's the thing. Subscribing isn't always enough. Sometimes you'll subscribe to the channel and you'll miss a video. The best way to not miss a video, you hit that bell and you set it to all. If you do that, as soon as we post a video, you will get a notification, and that way you never miss another one of our videos. So we're going to dive into some good news around Kenneth Walker, because I believe that Seattle might have just dodged the first bullet that they were going to have to dodge if they wanted to re-sign Kenneth Walker in free agency. Now, it seemed like on Sunday, after the Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler report by ESPN, that Kenneth Walker was as good as gone. In fact, it sounded like he had already packed his bags and he was looking for a new home. So as soon as that happened, it was like, well, I would like Seattle to go and make a move for a running back. And the running back that seemed to be linked, at least quietly, to the Seahawks was David Montgomery from the Detroit Lions. So the more that I dug into my research on Montgomery, hey, he's a pretty good running back. He would still have some tread left on the tires. He's going to be relatively cheap. Hey, that guy would work in Seattle. And I wanted Seattle to make a trade for him, especially since Montgomery seemed to be going for a day 3 pick, a position that Seattle, well, they didn't have the best day 3 pick of all time. It felt like they had a nice offering piece towards him. Then I woke up and there was some breaking news today. The Houston Texans had traded for David Montgomery. They traded away Juice Scruggs, a 4th-round pick, and a 7th-round pick. That obviously is a much better deal than what the Seahawks would have been able to offer for Montgomery, and in fact shows that while I was listening to some of the experts around the National Football League, it does seem like David Montgomery had a higher price tag, or at the very least had more teams that were willing to make a move for David Montgomery. So while I did want a David Montgomery trade to happen, that wasn't necessarily what I meant. I meant for David Montgomery to be traded to the Seahawks for a 6th-round pick, or potentially having another player thrown in there. But the more and more that I thought about this trade, I think it actually is a good thing for the Seahawks. Because you have to remember, there are only so many teams that are big free agent players when it comes to certain positions. And when you look at the running back room, well, there were only so many targets out there for teams to go after. And so it feels like Kenneth Walker might now still be that number 1 free agent running back that teams are potentially wanting to look at and wanting to go after. But more importantly, it feels like one of the big proponents of this running back free agent class, or this big team, these big teams that want to go after these free agent running backs, it feels like they are no longer on the list. When you look at the different free agent running backs, obviously Kenneth Walker is the belle of the ball, but now you have a player who wasn't a free agent running back take one of the spots that could have went to these guys who don't have a contract with another team. When we look at the major players that were supposed to be coming in and willing to pay top dollar, according to a lot of the rumors around the National Football League, it was the Houston Texans, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the New York Football Giants. Well, now the Houston Texans are not going to be a major player because they already have a running back. They do not need to come in and sign someone in free agency. So that means now that the Kansas City Chiefs and New York Giants would be the two big players and the two that have the most amount of money to potentially spend on others. That being said, when you look at how much money the Chiefs have in free agency or have available to them to use in free agency, it's not a whole lot. And the New York Giants aren't a whole lot better. So now the team that had a lot of the space to be able to go after Kenneth Walker, they're gone. It feels like there's more opportunities for Kenneth Walker to potentially come back and re-sign in Seattle because he's not going to overextend the cap number that the Seahawks had for him. Remember, the Seahawks want to sign Kenneth Walker. They just clearly have a ceiling price that they're willing to go. And if there aren't as many teams that are willing to drive up Kenneth Walker's price, well, it makes it more likely for him to stay in Seattle. Speaking of things that don't have a high price, go and check out the Seahawks Today shirt. Only $24.99. Sweetheart of a deal. Plus, you can show your friends that you are a real one of the fastest growing Chat Sports Seahawks channel. Look at that. Seahawks Today in the black. We also, of course, have it in the navy as well. Look at how sweet this t-shirt is. Going to be super comfortable. You are going to love it. We're going to have the link in the comment section and description of today's video. Also, make sure that you go check out our St. Patrick's Day merch as well. You can join the Seattle drinking team. Join our guy, Jerry B, on that squad. We got the green t-shirt as well as the navy t-shirt there. Thing is freaking sweet. Very affordable as well. Only $29.99. I love the comfort colors that we use. Very comfortable to wear. You're going to really enjoy it yourself. Go get yourself one today. We're going to have the link in the comment section and description of today's video. All you got to do, click that link. It'll take you right where you want to go. Dan Graziano had this to say, and this is why on Sunday I felt like Kenneth Walker was going to be gone. Kenneth Walker the third, who sounds like he's generating enough outside interest to spell the end of his time in Seattle. That was what Graziano said on Sunday. But if one of the major players is gone, well, now it makes it more likely that the Seahawks are going to be willing to try and hold on to Kenneth Walker and more likely to keep Kenneth Walker, especially since we already know that the Seahawks want to keep K9 in Seattle. He had a fantastic year this last year, and he got better as the season went on. So it only makes sense for Seattle to want to bring him back. It's also important to note that John Schneider is a very savvy businessman when it comes to free agent dealings. He knows how to tug on the heartstrings of players to try and get them back in Seattle while still getting them on a team-friendly deal. And it's also important to mention the Seahawks have a ton of cap space left that they can use to go after some of these big free agents. Here's what John Schneider had to say back at the Combine on trying to keep Kenneth Walker in Seattle.
Yeah, Super Bowl MVP, you know. I kind of lost it at the I got nervous at the I was talking in front of all those people today, and Ken's like, what are you talking about? We weren't, I totally made that up. Like, I just lost it. No, we'd love to have Ken back. You know, it's and he knows us better than anybody. It's about our 70, you know, and our collective and what that's going to look like, and you know, we'll have those meetings down here. We'll start, you know, talking to all the agents and yeah, we'll have a better feel where we're going here towards the end of the week. But obviously, we'd love to have everybody. We want to have everybody back. You know, right when you get done with something special like that, you're like, hey, let's run it back. You know, it's gonna be an interesting process.
Now, maybe this is me just talking myself into Kenneth Walker being more likely to return to Seattle, but it does feel like the Seahawks have put themselves in a position to get K9 back with the Hawks in 2026. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that it is a guaranteed for sure thing, but I do believe that Seattle getting Kenneth Walker back does seem to be something that isn't a fever dream anymore, especially when you look at the career stats for Kenneth Walker. Well, he's had the 2 years where he went over 1,000 yards. He's also had 2 years where he did not. And I think that the longer that Kenneth Walker sits out in free agency and the more that teams do their due diligence, if they really dive into the full career of Kenneth Walker, they're going to realize that, hey, he's a really good running back, but when you look at the totality of what he's done, he is not necessarily someone who should be resetting the free agent market price as a running back. Doesn't mean he's not a good running back, just means he might not be in that tier 1 or high end of tier 2 running backs in the National Football League right now, which I do think is very important. Kenneth Walker will return to Seattle in 2026. Scale your opinion of that down below in the comment section 1 to 12. I think right now I'm sitting at a 6. I think it's 50-50. I really do. I've come back around, and I think that it's 50-50 on Kenneth Walker. Hopefully he decides that he wants to stay with the Hawks. Next piece of good news that we have to talk about is Rasheed Shaheed, because the latest news and update on Shaheed is that he is going to be someone that is of interest for multiple teams in the National Football League, but he did say something that does make me feel pretty confident that he will end up back in Seattle. Shaheed is someone who is very fast. Shaheed is someone who adds in not just as a wide receiver, but also as a kick returner and a punt returner. That makes him extremely valuable to a lot of different teams. So, of course, it makes sense that he's going to have a very high free agent value and that teams are going to have a want or a need for Shaheed. The two main teams that have been linked to Shaheed so far are the Buffalo Bills and the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, both of these teams make sense in their own way of why they would potentially go after Shaheed and why he could help really bring up some of the successes that they want to have on the offensive side. When you look at the Buffalo Bills, they want to stack as much wide receiver talent as they possibly can around Josh Allen. It is clear that they tried to make a couple of moves in free agency as well as drafting a couple of different wide receivers, and it really just hasn't panned out. Keon Coleman was supposed to be someone that was going to be their number one wide receiver, and he was a healthy scratch in multiple games this past season. I believe that the Bills are going to want to be a major player in this free agency class because they don't want to have to take time to potentially develop a wide receiver. They want someone who can come in day one and be successful for Josh Allen. When you look at the Las Vegas Raiders, they could potentially want Rasheed Shaheed simply because of who their head coach is. Clint Kubiak has had Shaheed not only in Seattle, but also when he was in Las Vegas. And it's clear that he loves what Shaheed adds to his offense, and he really believes that he can get the most out of Shaheed and the most out of his offense if he has him on his team. But at the end of the day, what matters most is not what these teams want, but what Rasheed Shaheed wants to do. Will he potentially want to stay in Seattle, or would he potentially want to move on? Shaheed joined between the hash marks, and he had this to say about where he'd like to be next year. I feel like conversations are going to heat up a little bit, and I'm excited for it all, man. I kind of hope to come back and run it back, of course. I would say for sure to be here in Seattle. I'm loving it. I love the organization. I love the city. Love the fans. Getting accustomed to this place is nothing short of amazing, so I would not mind if I stayed at all. That's awesome! He wants to stay in Seattle. He loves Seattle. Rasheed Shaheed doesn't see himself being anywhere else other than Seattle. Maybe I added that last quote into that section myself, a.k.a. me saying that he doesn't want to go anywhere else other than Seattle. But when you have quotes like that from a player who says he loves the organization, loves the fans, wants to stay, wants to run it back, you need to do everything in your power to make sure that he stays in Seattle. Shaheed wants to be here. John Schneider wants him to be here. Mike McDonald, Brian Fleury, they want him to be here. So find a way to get a deal done. That's what I have to say. And I think that Shaheed's going to end up staying in Seattle. And I think that's so frickin' sweet. Be honest. Which free agent do the Seahawks need to re-sign in free agency? Not want to or should, need. Who do the Seahawks need to have? It can be on offense. It can be on defense. Let me know down below in the comment section. I got great news as well. I kind of tipped you off at the beginning of today's show that there was some breaking news that we had started while we were recording. Fantastic job by producer Searle to make sure that he got all of this in there. Safety Ty Okada and running back George Holani, they are going to be back in Seattle in 2026. This comes to us from The Athletic's Michael Sean Dugar. The Seahawks have tendered exclusive rights for free agent safety Ty Okada and running back George Holani. This means that they will only be able to negotiate with the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks are clearly going to try and get a long-term deal done. Now, of course, you do have to look at Okada as potentially the replacement for safety Kobe Bryant. So this could lead to Kobe Bryant ending up leaving in free agency. I would say that Ty Okada made it very clear by his play on the field that he is a more than serviceable safety for this defense, and I felt like he got better as the year went on. Just because the Seahawks signed running back George Holani does not mean that Kenneth Walker would be gone. This shows that the Seahawks have a clear backup plan, and that is making sure that Holani stays in the building. And I am very, very okay with that because of how well Holani has played when he's been able to get touches. Obviously, he had to deal with some injuries, and he missed some time. But when Holani was ready to go, I was very impressed with how well he played. Make sure that you turn on your notifications. Don't miss any Seattle Seahawks news or rumors throughout the 2026 offseason. We're going to have you covered. We got videos daily you don't want to miss. And make sure that you hit that sub button if you love the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to have you covered on everything. So just hit that sub button. Set your notifications to all. You don't have to worry about missing anything with the Seattle Seahawks. Thank you so much for viewing today's video, and I cannot wait to see you next time.